How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first of what will be many Nature Has Flavor podcasts. My name is Danny Horgan. Let me start by telling you a little bit about Nature Has Flavor, what you can expect to see from us in the future, and what you can expect to hear on this podcast. Nature Has Flavor is filling what is currently the biggest gap in the world of plant-based eating and living, and that's delicious tasting meals. I don't know about you guys, but I'm someone who loves food. I get excited about food. If I know I'm going to a restaurant later that day that I like, it's all I can think about. But I also care about my health. And when I adopted this plant-based diet a little over a year ago, it was very difficult for me to give up a lot of the foods that I loved. I would go to these vegan restaurants, these plant-based restaurants, and I would get these amazing meals, but as soon as it was over, it was back to reality for the next few weeks, and that would be rice and beans every night, steamed vegetables every night. It got boring very quick. I honestly reached a point where I had to ask myself, how important is taste to me? Is taste more important than health? And I said, no, it's not. I'd rather be healthy than have good tasting food, and this is a decision that I thought I would have to live with pretty much the rest of my life. It was kind of a disappointing thought, but my health means that much to me. Then I hear about this company, Nature Has Flavor. This company wasn't started by a plant-based doctor or nutritionist. It was started by a chef, someone who has been around the world cooking in kitchens everywhere from Israel to California. Leron Meller, the co-founder of Nature Has Flavor, wanted to start this company to give people the sustainable skills to prepare restaurant-quality plant-based meals from their own home. And when I heard about that, I said I have to be a part of this in some way because this is what I'm missing right now. I love going out to eat every now and then to a delicious vegan restaurant, but I want to look forward to my meals at night. I want to have something great to look forward to every day, and this is the sustainable way I've been able to do so. So Nature Has Flavor is going to be taking this twofold approach to giving people these sustainable skills on how to prepare plant-based meals. First and foremost, we're going to be providing you with loads of information, everything from food storage, finding fresh produce, how to actually prepare these meals. I thought I knew how to cook until I met Leron. Like anything, if you spend a lifetime learning and mastering something, you're going to reach a whole new level than if you're simply doing it out of necessity or out of recreation. But what Leron has done through Nature Has Flavor is he's actually streamlined this process, made it easy for everyday people like myself to prepare these meals on a regular basis. So we're going to be providing you with that information. And a big part of this podcast is going to be introducing you to some of the brightest minds in the plant-based community, top chefs, people who have been on this lifestyle for a very long time, who are going to give you the tips necessary to make this a sustainable part of your life. A lot of people say, oh, I could do maybe plant-based diet for a week, 2 weeks, a month even, but I eventually have to go back. And our goal is to show you, you don't need to go back. Guys, I've been through Europe. I've been to 5-star restaurants in the United States. Nothing compares to what we're preparing at Nature Has Flavor, and I mean that. The second way we plan on helping people achieve this plant-based lifestyle is through giving you the physical tools necessary to actually prepare these meals. As far as fresh produce goes, you need to go to the grocery store for that. In order to truly unlock the flavors of some of these meals, you're going to have fresh produce. There's no way around it. And you don't want vegetables being delivered to your home. You want those nice and fresh. But if you head on over to naturehasflavor.com, you'll find something on there called the box. Within every box, you'll find restaurant quality spices, condiments, herbs, and oils that will make any meal you decide to prepare delicious. Have you ever wondered why restaurant foods taste as good as they do? What is it exactly that separates those meals versus what you're making at home? The answer comes down to two things. First, restaurants are using insane amounts of fat and salt designed to hit those trigger points in your brain and keep you coming back for more. But they're also getting higher quality ingredients than what the public can get at a supermarket. The difference between the olive oil you get at a high-quality Italian restaurant versus what's available in grocery stores, it's night and day. A lot of the oils you'll buy at stores are cut with canola oil or some other cheap industrial oil that has food coloring in it designed to make it look like olive oil. But the difference in taste is absolutely immense. What we've done here at Nature Has Flavor is taken these high-quality oils, the world-class spices and herbs that are used by five-star restaurants around the world, and made them available to the public. And they're all found in Nature Has Flavors The Box. Guys, every meal you create will taste 10 times better. Your friends and family will thank you. Head on over to naturehasflavor.com and check out the box for yourself. See what the hype's about. Our podcast guest today is Wendy from the Nomadic Vegan. The nomadicvegan.com is a blog where Wendy shares her experiences eating plant-based foods in countries around the world. Currently, Wendy has visited 98 countries worldwide, and she has a whole lot more in store for this fall and beyond. So without further ado, I bring you Wendy from the nomadicvegan.com. So tell listeners a little bit more about your own background. What led you to the vegan lifestyle and eating the plant-based way, and what led you to start your blog?
Yeah, well, it started just a couple of years ago, really, which is hard to believe that it's only been a couple of years, because now it's such a huge part of my life. In some ways, it seems like it's been much longer than that. But it started for me really in May of 2014, and I listened to what's called the Food Revolution Summit. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's put on every year by John Robbins, who's the author of Diet for a New America, and his son, Ocean Robbins. And so they interview lots of really important personalities in the plant-based movement, T. Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn, and lots of people like that, people who I'd never heard of at the time. And I actually have no idea how I even found this Food Revolution Summit, but somehow I ended up listening to these interviews, and it was a lot of really completely new information for me. I mean, I guess I had heard the term vegan. I kind of knew what it was, but really didn't know why people would do it. I'd never heard the term plant-based before. So yeah, it took in a lot of new information. And the one interview in particular that I remember the most was with Alicia Silverstone, the actress.
Right.
And she's also vegan, which I didn't know until I heard this interview. But she had been kind of an idol for me growing up. I'm more or less the same age as her. And so I watched her movies when I was a teenager and kind of idolized her. So that caught my attention. I had no idea who T. Colin Campbell was, but Alicia Silverstone I definitely knew. So yeah, her interview really had an impact on me. And then just a few days after I listened to that, I happened to see her book in a used book sale. She has a book out called The Kind Diet. So I picked that up and started flipping through it, and it was a gradual process from there. At the time, I never thought that I would go completely vegan, but over the course of a few months, eventually that's what happened. So one of the main things that had been holding me back was travel, because I love travel, and it's a big passion for me and a huge part of my life. And I really thought that going vegan was just going to ruin travel. I didn't know if it would even be possible to find vegan food in lots of the places that I had been and lots of the places that I still wanted to go to. So that was a big kind of roadblock for me. But as I started learning more and, becoming more and more convinced that this was really what I wanted to do and the way I wanted to live, I decided to give it a trial run. I'd already booked a trip to Greece. So my husband and I were going to Greece for 3 weeks. This was now September of 2014. And I had decided that I was going to try staying vegan for that whole time that I was in Greece. And if I could do it, then that meant that vegan travel was possible after all, and that maybe, this was what I was going to do. And then immediately I realized that it was so much easier than I had thought that it was going to be. And so then I decided, well, I have to tell other people this, because I knew that there must be lots more people who had the same kind of fears and the same kind of misconceptions that I did. So yeah, the Nomadic Vegan was already kind of in my mind, like on that trip in Greece. I kind of already knew that I was going to start a blog. I'd never blogged before. I didn't know anything about this kind of stuff, but I knew that that was my calling. That was the niche that I needed to fill. So I started taking notes on that trip of, all the dishes that I was eating, all the different things that I was discovering. And not long after that, I actually started the blog once I got back home.
So you had been traveling before you became vegan, and this was kind of something that came together after you decided to go vegan, was to start this blog and share some of the foods you were eating on the road.
Yeah, I guess initially I thought that I was going to create this kind of survival guide for traveling vegans, because I had imagined that it was going to be really difficult for me and for everyone else. And so, I was going to tell people how they could do it, but I saw it as this survival guide. And now I don't see it that way at all, because that's really not my experience. It's more of a thrival guide. Like, more times than not, my problem is that there are too many vegan dishes and different things to try, and I'm not there in one place for long enough to try them all. So, it's really the kind of the opposite of the problem that I expected that I would have.
Yeah, so it says on your website you've been to, I believe, 98 countries so far. We at Nature Has Flavor, we love food. We love good plant-based food. That's our passion. So we're just gonna get right into it. What are the 3 most delicious vegan meals you've had on your travels?
Oh gosh, that is so hard. Well, I'll start with one from Greece, because there are loads of amazing plant-based dishes in Greek food, which a lot of people don't realize that. And just quickly as an aside, the reason for that, the cultural reason for that, is because of the religion, basically, of the Greek Orthodox religion. They have many different fasting days in the calendar. Something like 160 out of 365 days of the year are called fasting days, and that doesn't mean that you don't eat at all, but it does mean that you only eat certain things, and it's almost a completely plant-based diet. So that means that naturally they have lots of plant-based dishes that people need to eat on those days. So that's become a big part of the food culture and a big part of the cuisine. Mm-hmm. So I discovered all kinds of dishes in Greece that I really loved. One of my favorites is, I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but imam bayildi, which is an eggplant dish. It's basically like an eggplant that's cut in half and stuffed with tomatoes and spices and all kinds of things, and then roasted in the oven for a really long time until it's super soft and tender. And yeah, that's just really delicious.
It's funny, eggplant seems to be kind of a perennial favorite for a lot of vegan and plant-based foodies. Just some sort of eggplant dish. It really is a versatile, kind of underused vegetable. Eggplant is my favorite food as well. I just feel like it's kind of the unsung hero of the plant-based culinary world.
Yeah, I guess it is. And it also does have a very, hearty, kind of meaty texture. You can really bite into it and sink your teeth into it. So I think in some ways, actually it depends on how you prepare it, because you can make it really soft and tender as well. But, in some ways it can kind of stand in for those, animal-based dishes that people are used to eating and grew up on, and, can kind of substitute that for them in some way.
Yeah, I think having something relatively hearty is important. There are a lot of options out there, but I personally don't like tofu. I know that's a big favorite amongst a lot of vegans, plant-based eaters, but I don't like tofu. But I found eggplant and broccoli as well, although a very hearty vegetable that can absorb flavor. Yeah, for whatever reason, it just really absorbs flavor well. And I haven't found a lot of other vegans who have shared that sentiment with me, but for whatever reason, it's definitely a favorite of mine. So I would imagine that having traveled the world, taken this international culinary journey, it somehow influenced the way you prepare your meals at home. What would a typical day of eating look like for you now, and how are you preparing your own meals these days?
Well, I'm not actually, traveling long-term full-time at the moment. I do have a home base, although that's going to change relatively soon. But for now, I do have a day job in an office. So I pack my own food when I go to work, because there's not much there. There's a cafeteria, and they do have a vegetarian dish every day, and they guarantee that it's vegan on Wednesdays.
Right,
But other than that, you never really know. So I just bring my own food every day. So yeah, it's gonna sound boring actually, but it's really not. I love oatmeal. I'm totally addicted to oatmeal. So I eat that every day, but it's different every day too. I put different things in it, different kinds of fruits or peanut butter, and there's also loads of different ways to prepare oatmeal. I mean, my favorite way is just cooking it on the stove, but you can even bake it so that it's almost like a cake, really, if you make a baked oatmeal in the oven. Or, in the summer when it's really hot, you can do overnight oats where you don't cook it at all. You just, add the oats with some plant-based milk or even some juice, or it could be water. I don't think water works all that well with overnight oats, but yeah, and you just, let that soak overnight, and then in the morning it's all plumped up and ready to go. So yeah, I love oatmeal. I do that basically every day. And I also do a green smoothie every day. But again, it's different every time, I really love putting avocado in my smoothies. It gives it a really nice, thick, creamy texture. Bananas can do that too. And, put different greens in. And then in the evening is when, it changes up a bit. But it's actually my husband who cooks the dinners for us almost all the time. It's definitely what his cuisine, what he cooks has been hugely influenced by our travels. So he makes all kinds of dishes from all over the world. He loves Italian food. We both do. So lots of Italian, and then, plenty of Asian as well, Middle Eastern. He makes wonderful falafel. And yeah, that's been a big part of what we enjoy about travel, is discovering new dishes. And even if, we discover dishes that aren't vegan, and so perhaps, you can't try them when you're there, but you can make a note of them and then come back home and make a vegan version of them, when we're here, just the two of us. So yeah, it's definitely had a huge influence, and it's a lot of fun playing around with all the different cuisines.
I think that's one of the best parts of this lifestyle, is just discovering new foods, new things to try. It's really, there are endless possibilities out there, and I think probably more than anyone, you've experienced a lot more of those possibilities than most people because of your travel, which is really cool. I have to ask, have you ever had oatmeal with sunflower seed butter?
Oh, I have actually. Well, I made my own because like I said, I don't know if I did say already, but I'm living in Switzerland at the moment, and I can't find it sun butter here anywhere. I've never seen it. So I made my own just in the food processor. But I don't think it turned out very well. So that might have been just me. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that one. Why? Is that a favorite of yours?
Yeah, whenever I make oatmeal, I usually put some sunflower seed butter in there. Sunflower seed butter is, it's got a unique taste. It's a lot sweeter than peanut butter, which is kind of odd, considering, sunflower seeds themselves aren't inherently sweet, but they kind of take on a sweet texture. And so it's not for everyone, but for whatever reason, that's my favorite oatmeal combination. So you had mentioned that, this has kind of become more of a thrival blog than a survival blog. But that being said, I'm sure there are still some obstacles that come with eating plant-based on the road. Have there been any countries that you have found not so easy to navigate when it comes to plant-based meal options?
Well, it's all relative, I mean, I really wouldn't say that anywhere has been difficult. I've never gone hungry. I've never had a meal where I, had to skip a meal or couldn't find anything. Definitely some meals have been better than others, and, some countries have been easier than others. So, of the ones who are on the more difficult end of the spectrum, France is probably one, which is, probably not a surprise to most people. It actually depends on what part of France you're in. In the south of France, it's really not bad, because it's a much more Mediterranean influence on the cuisine. So, you know, they tend to use olive oil rather than butter, for example, to cook things in. And you can find, you know, a lot of the Mediterranean vegetables, the eggplant and the zucchini and the tomatoes, you know, the same ones that you would find in Spain or in Italy, because it's really a very similar climate down there. But if you're going up to the north of France, to Normandy, for example, then yeah, there's really not much in the local cuisine. And I did take a trip to Normandy, and this was when I was still a really new vegan. We went there for Christmas, actually. So it was kind of, you know, the perfect storm of like Christmas Day, almost everything was closed, and you know, and we were in a small town in Normandy, and I just thought, how is this gonna, at that point, you know, I was still a little bit wary and wasn't sure how this was gonna work, but it worked out just fine. A lot of times, you know, they just made something for me that wasn't on the menu at all, you know, and that was when it really hit home to me. Wow, I'm not limited to what's on the menu. I can actually ask for what I want, you know, and so they did that, and they made beautiful dishes, because, you know, the French it's all about the presentation, you know, and they really take a lot of care in making sure that their dishes look nice. So, you know, they had lots of really colorful, beautiful vegetables laid out, and it wasn't really a problem. But, you know, I was looking, one of the things that I like to do for the blog is to find the naturally vegan dishes in the local cuisine. And I really didn't come up with anything in Normandy. You know, there just isn't a vegan tradition in the cuisine. But as far as finding something to eat, you know, it's not really a problem. And I found that the French are actually a lot friendlier and more accommodating than they may have the reputation of being.
That's good to know.
I mean, other people have said differently. You know, I'm not going to negate their experience if that has been their experience. So I know vegans who have told me that they've gone into restaurants in France and asked to be given, you know, if they could adapt something, and they were just like, no, we don't do that. But honestly, that hasn't happened to me. And, you know, I've been to quite a few different places in France at this point as a vegan. So, yeah, same thing in Switzerland, actually. Like I said, I'm living in Switzerland now, which is not at all a vegan-friendly country in terms of, again, the traditional cuisine here. It's all about the cheese, you know, I mean, even the name of the country is synonymous with cheese, right? Swiss cheese. And meats as well. I mean, because of its geographical location, it's, you know, large parts of the country are up in the mountains, in a mountainous climate where, you know, the lay of the land is such that it's much more suited to raising cattle than to growing crops. So obviously that's had a huge influence on the cuisine. So yeah, I generally avoid the traditional Swiss restaurants because there isn't really that much there. I mean, you can always get potatoes. They love potatoes here. So, you know, there's always that. But given the choice, I would probably go to a pizzeria, for example, because those are very common as well. And you can always order a pizza without cheese. Or they often have a pasta dish. Even in the traditional Swiss restaurants, they'll often have, you know, just a pasta dish with tomato sauce, or, you know, different things like that. So, I mean, with the globalized world the way it is, you know, you're not limited to the national cuisine of the country that you're in. You know, when you're in Switzerland, you can, like, actually, I live in Geneva, which is an incredibly multicultural city, so I can get really any kind of cuisine here that you could possibly imagine. You know, it could be Ethiopian, Eritrean, Chinese, Thai, Lebanese, you know, really anything. And those cuisines are a lot more naturally vegan friendly than Swiss cuisine is. So yeah, like I said, it is relative, you know, in terms of like finding naturally vegan dishes in the local cuisine, which is something that I like to do. I really, get a kick out of doing all of that research and have a lot of fun exploring the cuisine in that way. So, some like France and Switzerland don't lend themselves to that as well as others, but, in terms of finding something to eat, I haven't found that it's really ever been a problem.
What about language barriers? You've been to, I think, almost 100 countries. That's going to be a lot of languages, and I'm assuming you don't speak 40 languages. How have you gotten over some of, the inevitable language barriers that come with travel?
Yeah, I am a translator actually in my current day job, so I do speak a few languages, but no, definitely not 40. And yeah, I've definitely been to lots of countries where I don't speak a word of the native language. So there are actually several tools out there that are available that can really help with this. And I have a blog post about it as well. So if you...
we can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. So the title of that, I think, is How to Order Vegan Food in Any Language. And I actually need to update it, and I will make sure that it's updated by the time that this airs, because some of those tools have changed, or they've been updated. But there are several different ones. The Vegan Passport is one that people are probably most likely to be familiar with. It's put out by the Vegan Society in the UK, and it's a little kind of pocket-sized book, like a phrase book, really, that you would bring on a trip, except that it has, one page for each language, and I forget how many languages they're up to now, but it's like 80 something, it covers pretty much the whole world. And so they have a one-page spiel that explains in some detail what vegans eat and what vegans don't eat, and, kind of politely asks if the person is able to create a meal out of those things that are all plant-based foods. And they even have a page in the back if, verbal communication has just broken down entirely, or if perhaps, you're dealing with someone who doesn't read, even in their language, then they have this page where there's a smiley face in the middle, and there's a whole bunch of plant foods, fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes, on that page with a big smiley face. And then the next page is, of course, a big frowny face with the meat and the dairy and the cheese and the eggs and all of that. So that can be a really useful way of getting the point across. Even if you, even if you do have a common language, that still might be the most effective way of getting the point across with some people. So there's that, and then there's some apps as well. And actually, that's one of the updates that I will make on the blog post, because the Vegan Society, who publishes the Vegan Passport, they have very recently just come out with a mobile app version of the Vegan Passport, so you can have it on your phone, on your smartphone, if you want. And there are a few other apps too, and they all, they're all a little bit different in the way that they explain it and the wording that they use, and they have slightly different features. There's one called Eat Away, which I like because you can really customize it. So, say if you eat a plant-based diet and also a gluten-free diet, then you can customize that to make that clear. Or even if, there's a particular food that you really hate, like say you really hate mushrooms, then you can also customize the explanation to say, I don't eat mushrooms, or, in addition to these other animal products. So there's that one. There's Vegan AGoGo. And there's V Cards, and they have both. They have an app, but they also have a paper version, and that one's totally free. And you can just print out the paper, and it's just a little kind of wallet-sized card that you would cut out. And the advantage of that is that you could just hand it over to the waiter, for example, and then he could take it back to the kitchen and show the chef, whereas you probably don't want to hand your phone over to the waiter and have that taken back to the kitchen and not know what's happening with it.
Right.
So, there's, different tools might be more useful to other people and more useful in certain situations, but Yeah, there are quite a few translation apps and translation, tools out there that are really helpful, and that I think more or less can get you over that language barrier.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously animal products have been very much ingrained in cultures across the world, but I really feel like technology is a great equalizer. Technologies like the ones you just described that allows people to kind of rise above a lot of the restrictions around them and actually eat good plant-based meals. So that's really encouraging to know. The plant-based movement is obviously growing. You have more and more people coming over to this way of eating and even ethical living. What advice would you give for someone who just recently switched over to a plant-based diet who is looking now to travel abroad?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is, don't worry, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. So I have probably my two biggest pieces of advice, one of which I already hit on a little bit earlier, is ask for what you want. And that was really a huge revelation for me when I first started this, because I kept going to restaurants and looking at the menu outside, and I just didn't see anything, and I was getting really discouraged. And but once I realized that I wasn't limited to that, and that I could just ask for what I want, then everything changed. And it takes a little bit of courage, especially in the beginning.
Absolutely.
It's hard to as humans, we don't really want to stick out and be different. Like we like fitting in and looking normal. So it might be hard to stick up for yourself and speak up and ask for that the first couple of times. But then you'll realize that it's not a big deal. I mean, restaurant staff, they get these kinds of requests all the time. Like, especially nowadays, more and more people have food allergies or are on different kinds of diets, and so it's really not a problem. It's really not a big deal to just ask. And, if you don't see anything at all on the menu, just explain how you eat. Make it clear, because they may or may not understand the term plant-based or vegan. So, just explain, I don't eat any meat, dairy, or eggs, or fish, and then maybe give them some suggestions, of pasta or rice or chickpeas, or, just based on what you see on the menu. If you see any kind of side dishes, for example, ask if you could have maybe 2 or 3 different side dishes and make that into a whole meal. There's lots of different things that you can do, really. I mean, vegan food is everywhere. Plants are everywhere, even in the standard American diet, which is the worst possible diet that you can have. And is very much centered around animal products. There are very few countries. I think Denmark actually eats more meat per capita than the U.S., but we're way up there. There are very few countries that eat more animal products than we do. And even so, I read just recently that 42% of the standard American diet is animal products. Now, that's way too high. That's really bad. But at the same time, you could look at it the other way and say, well, that means that the majority of the food is still plants. So the plants are there, and it might just be, it's not like there are no plants in the kitchen. They're there, and it might just be a matter of adapting the dishes a little bit, and asking them to leave off the cheese, or asking them to do something a little bit differently, cook the vegetables in the butter instead of the olive oil, in the olive oil instead of butter.
Yeah, all good. We know what you mean.
But there's going to be food. Plants, fruits and vegetables, and all of these things are out there, and it's just a matter of making sure that you ask for what you need and you get it. And then, so that would be my number one tip is don't be afraid to ask for what you want. And then the other one is, and this is probably a bit more, I don't know, woo-woo, or but I would say develop an abundance mindset or an abundance mentality, because if you go there looking and expecting to find shortage and lack and, not finding anything to eat, then you're not going to find anything to eat, But if you go into the situation with an abundance mentality and you start looking for abundance, then that's going to be your experience. That's what you're going to find. And we really do shape our own experiences in so many ways, just based on our attitude and, you know, mentality that we go into the situation with. So yeah, those would be my two pieces of advice. I do have lots more, actually. And if you go to the website, to theNomadicVegan.com, I have an ebook called 9 Steps for Easy Vegan Travel, and you can download that for free. So you'll see a link to it just on the main page up at the top.
So that wraps up our conversation with Wendy from The Nomadic Vegan. You can get in touch with Wendy at thenomadicvegan.com or on her very popular Facebook page, just by searching on Facebook for The Nomadic Vegan. If you want to get in touch with us, guys, check us out at naturehasflavor.com. We also have our own Facebook page, facebook.com/naturehasflavor. We hope to connect with you soon. All right, guys, until next time, I'm Danny Horgan. This is the Nature Has Flavor podcast.